It's so good to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out for the show today.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
So let's begin our journey into your work by asking you this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed our lives, our world, everything that we were doing. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you do things today?
Oh, what an interesting question. Well, a couple of ways it changed things for me. We moved across the country in October 2020, so right in the middle of COVID. Sold two places in Ontario, moved as far west in Canada without falling into the ocean as we could go. So that was one big change. My business is online. I have a small children's publishing company, and it's always been virtual. Like my team members are in Toronto and Ottawa and various other places. So it didn't affect that. So that was good. I could continue that. Um, but it did make me pause to reflect what I really want to do. I mean, life obviously became very um, wobbly for a lot of people, and much less certainty, much less, it became fragile. Our health was impacted by everything. So it kind of made me um, revisit, well, how do I want to spend whatever years I have left? And that's when I really started writing seriously. So I had my first middle grade book published in 2022, but it was because of COVID and the space that gave me that I could sit down and start writing seriously. There was nothing else to do.
Sure. Yeah. So you've had different incarnations in your career. You're a recovering corporate executive. So if I put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds at career day, and one of the kids wanted to kind of get a snapshot of what you've done and where you're at and what you're doing today, how would you explain to that child your career?
Well, life takes funny little turns, doesn't it? Um, I started off wanting to be a writer ever since I was about 8. And in fact, I did an undergrad in English Lit. But reality set in and I realized I had to get a job. So I did a graduate degree in business, in finance and accounting, and became a CPA. And so that paid the rent for many years. And I went through the beauty of being a CPA or in the finance world is that you can move across industries. The work is still the same. You have to learn different businesses, but you can work in many different industries. You're not locked in like somebody who's a mining engineer or a pharmacist or something like that. So I worked for high tech, I worked for nonprofit, and I worked in hospital administration. And my last job was as a CFO in hospital admin, which I loved. I really, really loved. But my husband was the mining engineer and the CEO of a mining company, and they get moved around. And he took a job running the Russian and Central Asian operations for a huge international mining company. So we had teenage kids at home. So for a few years, we did the long distance thing, commuting. But once the kids were finished their first year of university, the youngest finished his first year, we really came to a decision point where is it my career and job and the kids, or do I join my husband and save my marriage? So I quit my job. I moved to Moscow and lost my identity completely. I
Wow.
was no longer a corporate executive. I was no longer, a working mother, and I had no friend group. So that was an interesting period. And that's when I started getting back into the world of books. Um, and joined some online communities, made some friends, ultimately got involved with somebody who was starting a small publishing company and took the position of publisher when we finally came back to Canada. So I think anything I would tell a 12-year-old would boil down to two words, and that's be flexible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be flexible. Don't expect to do the same thing your whole life because chances are it's not going to happen that way.
I remember in high school, they had told us it would be anywhere between 8 to 10 lateral or otherwise moves in your career. And I was like, you're crazy. I know what I want to do, you know? And that's the way you are when you're a kid. It's that whole thing when you're not alive long enough, you have no idea. So you fall into that fallacy really easily. So you wrote your first book at 8. I would imagine it's a foregone conclusion that your life you envisioned was going to be in writing.
Yes.
What was the first book for you? What was the book that captivated you that made you either want to write or read more?
Oh, I was probably around the age of 8. Um, and it was fantasy, which is what I write now. I've stayed true to the genre. Um, and there were a few. There were the Narnia books, there were the Borrowers books, um, there was the Diamond in the Window. So my first personal book was written when I was the age of 8, and I made it with a little piece of paper and illustrated it, and it was heavily influenced, I think, by the Borrowers.
You know, the thing that's interesting to me about fantasy is I think it's more important now than ever with the way the world is, particularly in America with the acrimony and things that are going on. People need an escape, whether it's art or it's music. But I sometimes think with fantasy, we don't know what's on the other side of this. When we leave this planet, it almost seems to me there's a lot of fantasy that could actually happen in another realm. Is that anything that you've thought about that's potential? Like, it's not just this fictionalized thing that a human brain came up with. It's an actual thing that could happen in another realm that we aren't aware of.
I think that's absolutely true because I believe in string theory. I believe in multiple universes. I believe in, um, your future bifurcating with every decision that you make. But you lived each of those potential futures somewhere.
Yeah.
So if that can happen, I think anything can happen, quite frankly.
So,
And fantasy is actually a good way to illustrate Earth problems without and explore Earth problems without getting into trouble with perhaps difficult political regimes.
yeah, absolutely. We can learn from it. So, yeah, because I was thinking during the pandemic at one point, an idea that came through to me that I think would be really interesting is I remember what my son's 20, and I remember at that point when he was in the womb, they always said like classical music and conversations and voices help kind of build their brain. And I'm thinking of all of the children during that 2020 period, around that March to May, June period, where they were feeling this intensity. And I always thought it would be fun to kind of have like a sci-fi story where those children, when they get older, become scientists and come up with a way of eradicating the COVID strain. Like they all somehow find some way to like navigate through the mysteries of life together and they come up with this antidote so we don't have a pandemic on this planet again.
That's a really interesting idea for some speculative fiction, and it reminds me that I've got my COVID booster at 10:30 today.
So, speaking of ideas, how do you, what how do they come up for you? Is it a subconscious thing? Do you have a recorder on you? Where's your divine moments of inspiration? Is there any kind of peak?
As in location or
Yeah, just like when,
circumstances or
yeah, when does it happen? Does it happen early in the morning before your brain wakes up to what's going on? Like, how does it happen for you?
A lot of it happens when I'm doing something else that is physical. So my body is busy. Like I go for long walks. I live close to the sea. In 10 to 15 minutes, I can do a lovely walk down to the ocean and walk along the ocean. And I find I get a lot of good ideas just as long as I don't put in AirPods. I turn off my phone so nobody can call me. Um, a lot of good ideas come then. When I'm in the bath or the shower.
Yeah. I've heard
Again,
that.
yeah.
There's really a
Again,
way before your brain starts taking the synapses start firing crazy. There's just this elegance of quiet.
and there's something about water,
Yeah, right.
humans and water. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's, especially in the bath, it's kind of returning to the womb.
That's, yeah. My son's on the spectrum and he loves fountains. Like he'll
Mhm.
like lay down on a blanket next to a fountain and everybody always calls the cops on him. Like I'll kind of let him do his thing because they're just not sure what's going on and they're wondering what's happening. And it's strange, but he's always found comfort being next to water. And I've thought about that and I think about those, the beginnings of our life before we're kind of almost rapturously brought into this world. There's this tranquility and there's this water and there's this sound.
And safety.
Yes,
You're
warmth.
you're you're safe to let your mind wander because there's no threat to your body.
Yeah,
Otherwise, our minds are always looking for um, where's the next threat coming from?
yeah.
It's just a survival instinct. It's why we're both still sitting upright talking today.
It's the Darwinian thing. Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
Galapagos novel.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But that kind of chatter or vigilance precludes any deep thought,
yeah,
really. You know, so you
yeah.
have to be in a space where, yeah, where you feel safe
Yeah.
and it's quiet.
So, speaking of safety, and I'm going to up this a little bit, who's been that inspirational force for you in your life that's allowed you to navigate successfully in a corporate career and to come back and find this dream that's always been incubated and a part of your life?
Two factors. One is I'm a firstborn and very driven, just on my own. Second is finally finding the right partner, the right husband. I had to test drive a couple first,
Yep, I get it.
but my current husband, and I call him that just to keep him on his toes, is we've been together for over 27 years now. So, and we've been through a lot, multi-country moves, blending families. Uh, we've been through some stuff, but you find the right person, but you also have the right internal drive. It has to be from within as well as from without.
Yeah. I accidentally stumbled upon this thing on either Instagram or TikTok, one of the two, and there was a challenge that went out where husbands would go into the room and they would have their camera on and they would call their wife their current wife, and the women freaked out on them, just absolutely lost their minds. Like looked over, here's my current wife. So anyway, I was thinking about when you said that they were not okay with it. Um, so let me ask you this. The thing about writing is that we see these exposés of sport and even high-powered business people, and you see this kind of narrative of their life, kind of the rags to riches and the heroic nature of these stories. But in writing, writers are more of a solitary, there's a solitude, there's kind of a private acquiescence of the craft. But if you could be a fly on the wall and watch any writer construct and come up with that book, what writer would you love to have been the fly on the wall to see how they did it?
Terry Pratchett,
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask
hands
you,
down my hero.
yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this. I see for me, whenever I think about that question, I think about Hemingway being at a table with like 100 cats around him. He's just sitting there and he's got a little tumbler of scotch and there's just cats everywhere. and these tales switching around. And he's just typing on an old typewriter. So I just think about the romanticism of that because everybody has their creative way that they get to the essence of who they are, you
Yeah.
know. Um,
Yeah. That would be the person I would look to.
yeah.
Sure.
So, what gets you up every day to do this? Or even historically in your life, being a successful businesswoman, what was it that always got you out of bed when the alarm went off to push yourself and to even having this dream that you've come back to of being a writer? I mean, that's a huge thing when you go down the road long enough in life, people just let things go. They just don't do it. But you came back and you're realizing what you've always wanted to do. What has been that motivation for you?
Uh, Having a strong purpose, having I'm very achievement oriented. Books are great because you have a finite product at the end.
Yeah,
You have something, you have an achievement to hold. Um, yeah, and I love telling stories.
yeah,
I love exploring, especially now. My main characters are all older. They're all 60 and over.
yeah,
Um, why is that? A, why should young people have all the fun and adventures?
yeah,
Um, B, there are a hell of a lot of boomer women, and Gen X is coming up fast.
yeah.
I think the last boomer was turned 60 last year.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's a big audience for that, and there's not a lot of product where an older woman can see herself reflected as a complete whole person who's still able to have adventures, who's still able to change. Um, Historically, older women have been secondary characters, um, and usually in a more traditional type role.
Yeah.
So I think that midlife and on is a fantastic time to explore change and reinvention and resilience, and because you're
Yeah.
much better at reinvention
Uh-huh.
in your 50s and 60s than you are at 25.
Yeah. Do you ever think in the process of really getting into writing later in life, was there ever a part of you that thought I needed to be alive and around long enough to accumulate these experiences that would give me the backbone to do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I view the world completely differently now than I did at, say, 30.
Yeah.
Um, I don't get, yeah, I've seen market booms and crashes, for example,
Yeah.
several times. I've seen, political upheaval and then recovery and then more upheaval. People just don't change. We don't learn from history. I
No.
don't know what it is, you
No.
know.
We don't.
Sorry, that was a little sidebar, but
No. That's good.
it's easier to be more philosophical and say, well, this too will end.
Yeah.
This and yeah, this too will end.
So with everything going on, with all of these, like kind of expounding on that sidebar of we repeat all these things. I remember the first market crash I knew in my lifetime was in '87, and I didn't really quite understand what was going on. It was bad. And then,
Mhm.
of course, we had the '08, and we had all these other things that happened. But, you know, um, I lost track of what I was going to say. I totally got it'll come back to me. Um, no, I know what I was going to say. So my question to you is this: with all of these things, and especially coming off the heels of COVID, do you remain hopeful for human beings, especially in the realm of writing fantasy and what you're doing? Are you hopeful for humans, or where are you at with that?
I am hopeful because if you look at history, there always has been a pendulum swing. Um, as long as we don't do something terminally stupid, which, because of the weaponry that's around the world, could happen if somebody has a big enough temper tantrum. But I think there are enough sane people in power, whether you agree with their political affiliations or not, to prevent an apocalypse.
Yeah,
So the longer that can be deferred, the better chance there is of some returning to the middle ground.
yeah.
Like you saw it in your elections this week with two states returning Democrat governors and Democrat mayor in New York. And so I think I think there's a natural tendency for people to return to stability, to the middle ground.
And somehow the laws of the universe and karma always find a way of hiding. They may not come out immediately, but they're there.
It's that rake hiding in the long grass that you step on.
Yeah, that's it. Whether it's Murphy's Law or it's the natural way that life happens, it's there and it's waiting for sure.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you were to have a dream tonight, you ran into, let's say, the 18-year-old version of you, and you sat down next to that young version of you, and you had a book, and it was like a picture book, and that young version of you went through it, and it was your life, how it's turned out. Would that young version of you believe it? No?
Some aspects of it, but I don't think I had the capacity at 18. We talked about this a bit earlier to understand how many times life changes,
Yeah.
whether it's a intentional change or a circumstantial change. And at 18, you still think it's going to be linear. So yes, I could envisage myself as a CFO, or a writer. Both I would have had trouble with. So having done both sides, um, I wouldn't have seen that coming. By the way, I was working for a foreign exchange company, an international foreign exchange company in 1987 when it crashed.
Oh,
Everything
wow.
crashed.
Yeah,
That was
for
pretty.
some reason, I remember my grandma was in town. My dad was born in Brooklyn and raised in Long Island, and she had come to town for something, maybe a graduation. And I remember she just looked like all the air was taken out of her.
Mhm.
Now, I didn't realize stocks and money and financial markets and how all, I mean, it was really grim. I remember by the time I got home from school and came home, there were people that were jumping out of high rises. It was bad. It was like
It's
everything
very
just
bad.
kind of capsized fast. Um, I'm curious of everything that you've done, accomplished, and more importantly, evolved to at this point in your life. What are you ultimately the proudest of?
Hmm. Me, how I have weathered storms, how I've grown, and how I've been resilient. Um, and I think each of us can look to points in our lives where we can be really proud of decisions that we've made. Even if we've made some bad ones, the fact that we're still sitting upright shows that we've made good ones as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel, particularly now that I'm working in paranormal women's fiction and I think doing some good things. Um, yeah, I'm proud of living up to my potential.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, all of your fans, readers, everyone that knows you in a business sense, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Hmm. Today, um, I think I'm a woman who operates with lives her life with a philosophy of elegant success.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time. I think I think for any young person, I would really say it takes time to grow into yourself.
Hmm.
It takes time to grow into your own personal power. So don't despair if at 25 or 30 you don't think you're there yet. You
Yeah,
got lots of time.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if we get off this call and a time machine pulls up in front of your house and you could go either back in time or go into the future and see something, where are you going to go? What do you want to see? It won't create a ripple in time, won't create any weird effect. You just merely get to watch either a human event or something in the future.
Hmm. It's one of those trick questions like who would you like to have dinner with?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Um,
There's a lot there. Yeah,
there's a lot there. I don't know. I don't think I'd want to go back.
right.
Been there, done that.
Yeah,
It was fun while it lasted, but man, I'm glad I'm not doing it now.
yeah,
Um, I wouldn't mind I'd like to go forward 5 years and see where we all are. I think in 5 years, we will have either made it or not.
yeah. So Corona Flames came out on Halloween.
And also Samhain, the pagan holiday, All Hallows Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah, came out last Friday.
So if anybody wants to pick up a copy, if they want any of your other works, anything else, reaching out, any of the good business, where do they go?
You can buy paperbacks through your favorite bookstore. Ebook is on Amazon.
Okay. I will
Yeah,
put links in the show notes. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking a little time out. I appreciate your story and best of luck with all of it.
it's been a pleasure, Joe. Thanks so
Yes.
much.
Thank you.